and welcome. Coursera and ET Studios presents Generative AI and the next level of personalized education. Welcome to what promises to be a scintillating discussion today. Now, in our rapidly changing world, organizations must continuously adapt and innovate to stay competitive. By fostering a culture of learning, organizations can empower employees to develop new skills, embrace change, and drive growth, ensuring long-term success in a dynamic and evolving landscape. I'm your host Shilpa Ratnam, and it's my honor to introduce my panelists for the day. Ramakrishna Vyamajala, Chief Human Resources Officer, Home First Finance Company. Hello and welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us today. And we also have Pushkar Kelkar, Regional Director for Enterprise Business, Coursera. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for inviting.
Thank you. And let me start off by saying that it's going to be a very free-flowing discussion. We want it to be a conversation. So please feel free to interject or to come in with any points that you have at any juncture. But I'll start it off formally with our first question. How do you think learning has evolved in the last few years with the evolving business environment, the hybrid way of working, and changing skills priorities?
Yeah, I think to be honest, there's been a sea change in the way learning is getting consumed in organizations across the country, and our organization is no different. I can give you a context of my organization and how the learning has evolved. Pre-COVID, there was a lot of push to get everybody together because that was the only way in which learning could have happened. And that was the thought process. So we built training centers, we built tie-ups with organizations which could deliver on the premise training, either in the premise of their own setup or in our organization. COVID hit, a lot changed, but we could not stop learning, right? I mean, the COVID could not have stopped us from learning. So we moved online. We built primarily a completely online way of learning because through that period there was no other option. And then when we came back and we started reflecting on what's worked between an offline and an online model and what was happening in the workplace, which is the whole hybrid, some of them were coming to office, some of them were not coming to office, they were working out of home, they were working out of other places, and so on and so forth. So I think what then came out, there were the best of the online, the convenience, the speed at which we could deliver, and because of the use of technology, the whole learning personalization that was happening, that came into the picture in terms of the learnings from there. And then the offline was about making sure that the learner is able to concentrate, the learner is there, present. We are seeing the evolution of the learner, etc. Those were the best things from the offline model. So we've started combining that as we move forward. So some of the things that we are bringing in is in terms of hyper personalization. How do you bring that individual's learning to the core, rather than saying, okay, as an organization I have 10 things to teach and therefore everybody should learn those 10. So that's the evolution that has just started. I won't say we've mastered it yet, but it's a good start.
So what are the learnings that you have had from the pandemic, as he mentioned, when it comes to the hybrid way of working and learning?
Absolutely, and 2 points that Ramakrishna touched upon was making it more personalized, as well as how do you ensure that learning essentially achieves outcomes, right? What we've seen in our work over the last 5 to 6 years in Coursera for Business, where we worked with about 3,000 plus corporations. I think post-pandemic and during the pandemic, the first fundamental change that happened towards learning was the mindset. Pre-pandemic, every learning was, on campus or, in the office, done by a facilitator or a trainer. The mindset changed from the fact that learning can also happen online through various platforms, through various, medias and so on and so forth. The other change that we saw and we are continuously seeing is learning was earlier a benefit or a value add. Now learning's become a core of any organizational business outcome as well as an individual's growth aspirations, right? And that is where the HR teams and the L&D teams lead in terms of how can we make it contextual to the learner and how can we make it, kind of impactful for the business, which leads to the fact that, how does this translate to businesses, right? And what kind of business impact that we, achieve as an organization. So that's where I think learning programs are now, have three arms. One is, which mode, can they be personalized? Can they achieve business outcomes? And in all of it, essentially is the center around, does this make sense for everybody and at scale, right? Pre-pandemic, everything 50 cohort size, 60 cohort size, but now an organization such as Home First can open up learning for everybody. So center is the scale, and then the parameters around personalization are, the peripheries around it.
So did you also find that learning increased in this period? And if you can tell us, what are the sort of courses that people gravitate towards?
I definitely think learning increased. The last 3 years, we've seen the consumption increase almost 3 to 4 times than what we used to see in the past. But that did not mean that they were actively learning. They were looking to, what has also happened, I think one of the things that is important in the context of the entire pandemic was that with the advent of technology, a lot of roles started changing. So people not just thought that I have to learn for now, but they had to learn for the future. That started coming in terms of thought processes of people. So the consumption therefore went up, because initially people said, okay, I know the job, I can do it. I don't need anybody to tell me how to do this, or a course to tell me how to do this. But suddenly they were hit with an unknown. Now how do I navigate this unknown? And that became an important aspect of learning. And therefore the learning needs increased, and therefore the consumption increased. And so I think that started the consumption rush, if I were to put it that way.
Yes, that's a very significant insight indeed, sir. Now you're talking about the future, and let's talk about the buzzword AI. How do you think generative AI technologies can be effectively utilized to personalize and scale experiences for a diverse workforce while maintaining a high level of interactivity and engagement?
Quite a few things in the question, so let me break it down for a few of them. One is, how does generative AI help in contextualizing? For me, I think that's the biggest or the most significant part of what generative AI has brought to learning. It's been able to contextualize. It's been able to bring about what is relevant and what is future. So it is able to break this for individuals. So if I am in operations, for me the most significant thing was, can I do the same thing over and over again and faster? Every time I do it, can I do it faster? I was learning about that. So if there were a new tool that would come, it would increase my productivity by 5-10%. So I would learn about that. But now with operations, some of them are saying, why do you even need this process? So it has become from 10%, 20% incremental change to completely removing it and saying it's a redundant process. Can I do it differently? So for example, our own processes, we used to collect cash. So we used to say how do you collect cash? How do you store it? How do you kind of send it to the bank? Can I improve the process of sending it to the bank? Can I make it faster? Do I have a cutoff? Those were the things that we used to slowly but surely introduce. Suddenly with the advent of wallets and so on and so forth, the entire need to collect cash went away. So the process shifted from how do I improve my cash collection to how do I now do this whole piece without collecting cash. So the entire process itself changed, the entire need changed. The erstwhile skills that you had completely went out of the window. So you had to now come up and say, hey, this is a new process. I don't need to go to the customer. I just need to send a link and the customer will pay. I need to ensure that the data is reconciled immediately at the center. So you don't need somebody sitting and reconciling cash receipts with something. So that skill of ability to send, I mean, it's a very simple thing, but I'm just saying it's a new skill, right? It's something that has not been there before. So you have to create a payment link, you have to send it to the customer, you have to explain it to the customer. So now the skill changed from taking the cash to be able to explain to the customer that, okay, here's an app on which you can go, you can click, you'll get a payment link, you should just click on it and the money will go. So trying to explain that to a customer type that we have was itself a very different skill that people had to learn.
Yes.
So the contextualization, the generative AI now started looking at helping people contextualize and saying, okay, where are your processes changing? How do you therefore look at learning? Then the next part of the journey started with AI was personalization. Now, two people sitting in the same branch have different delivery outcomes, right? I mean, I'm performing at say X, my counterpart is delivering at say Y. And so there are different things that both of us are either lacking or both of us are doing well. Two things that happened. One, because of this, we are able to capture information about who's doing well and who's not doing well on a more real time basis. And that information being fed is helping us realize, okay, who needs improvement where. And only that part of the problem, if you were to attack and if you were to send them say a course saying that, okay, you don't seem to be doing well in analyzing the customer, so focus on analyzing the customer. And the other person is, you don't seem to be doing really great in terms of business development, so here are 3 courses which will help you say make an opening pitch to a connector. So that hyper personalization, the contextualization has started bringing, I mean, so, and the third piece is now the technology is talking to people. In the past it was, you know, you're giving them tech and saying, okay, here's a platform, here's a learning management system, you have to search, you have to go, you have to figure out that this is the course that I want to do and therefore do the course. Now what it is doing is we are trying to make this talk to the individual and tell the individual, you know what, you're doing this, hey, can I tell you this? Hey, can I recommend you something different? So that I think is another big play that has happened because of generative AI.
Wow, you have summed it up pretty comprehensively, sir. How would you like to add to that, Pushkar?
I think there is not much to add, but I would say I'll pick up themes from what Ramakrishna said. I think digital transformation of businesses, which essentially is leading to someone doing the same job but with a different skill set, right? The other is learning and the second example that Ramakrishna said was learning in the flow of work, right? So while I'm doing my work, how can I still go on and improve some of the things that I'm not probably good at or something that I aspire to do in the future, right? So that's where I think platforms such as us are investing a lot of time and effort on our product, where we are trying to ensure that someone who comes onto the learning platform today, one has the ability to curate their own learning program based on 2 things. One, identify the skill set that they need to kind of improve upon or add to their portfolio. Second, the kind of learning that they want to start with, right? Whether it's a 5 to 10 minute video, whether it's a 1 hour conversation through the platform, or a full course which gives them deep skills in that particular topic. And then the third bit is on our platform, the support that a learner gets, right? Learning traditionally has been through mentors or through peers, right? So when someone comes to the learning platform, how can one make it more interactive and more personalized? So that's where we are trying to innovate on our platform through kind of figuring out a way of communicating with the learner on what they are requiring, how can we solve their problems in their particular roles, and we have built up 2 or 3 tools which I'll elaborate later on. And then the fourth thing regarding scale is the language translations, right? Now with the use of Gen AI and other large language models, we are now able to kind of translate our content, which is primarily English, into 7 different languages for about 2,000 courses. So Indonesian, Bahasa, Thai, Arabic, and so on. That's where I think again these Gen AI tools come to a lot of fruition.
And I think there's some Indian languages, perhaps,
so Hindi
in the works
is,
as
on the
well.
cards, but it's in the roadmap for the next 6 months.
Excellent. Now, in what ways do you think generative AI can enhance the effectiveness of learning programs by providing personalized recommendations and adaptive content delivery based on individual employee needs and preferences? Of course, we spoke about that just now, right? About how, depending on their ability and needs, you can suggest. And how can generative technologies facilitate this?
I think it's a twofold activity. It's not just about, I mean, in an organization where you have a large field force and people who are out there in the market on an ongoing continuous basis, how do you make sure that it's making sure that it is taking that time, that relevant time in the day that you have, and suggesting courses for that period, rather than say, for example, I have half an hour break, for me to find a course that I can do, or a learning that I can do in those 30 minutes will be difficult to search. But if I were to have a generative AI model which is helping me fine tune and find the relevant course, it will give me the perfect course for that period, right? Rather than saying, okay, here's a 3-month course that you can do, it's going to say, okay, you seem to have only 30 minutes, why don't you look at this as a crash course, and if you want to do a little more on this, here's another 3-month course that you should focus on, or you should pick it up when you have more time. But it's also on the other side, it's also need to help the managers, and I think that is another big benefit that I see. I haven't seen so much in action as of now. I'm kind of maybe speculating here at this point in time, and at least it's my wish that it helps the managers a little more in terms of telling them that this is where you need to focus on. So the 2 things that happen. One is that you tell the manager, okay, these are the 3 people who are doing well, these are the 4 people who are not doing well, and therefore they need XYZ courses. Again, it is about just informing them and saying, okay, these are the 4 courses, please go and do. But if it can tell the manager saying that, can I distill this and talk about just 3 or 4 things, and not just as courses, but also as actions that you can do. For example, give them this course and then assess them on this after, say, 3 days or 5 days, or give them this project and see how they perform, rather than pushing courses for everything. See, one of the things that happens with a set of people who fresh out of college, etc., and that's the kind of people that we hire a lot, is that they've, through their learning journey or through their schooling, college, etc., they've all been told, okay, you finish this, then you're good. Yes. Like you passed 10th with flying colors, you're good. You passed 12th, you're good. You passed graduation, you're good. You pass MBA, you're good. And then they come into an organization, and the organization starts telling you, forget everything that you've learned. This is what I want you to learn again. So it just becomes very difficult for them to study again. So how do you make that a little more fun and not make it as study? So that is where managers play an important part. So maybe turn that around into projects, turn it around into assignments, one of the things that some of our regional heads do, and it's a very interesting thing, is bring all of the people together and do an assessment, like a quiz. So all the new joinees every Saturday, for example, have like a pizza party, which is not just having pizzas, but also trying to answer a quiz. So he runs a quiz and says, okay, you know what, the best one or the first one to crack these questions gets a small prize, etc. So make learning fun. And that support, I think these because every week if the regional head needs to come up with something new, it will become very difficult. So that is where these tech will help him come up with, say, okay, this week do something like this. And take the input on an ongoing basis and say, okay, you've done these 3 things in the last 3 weeks, why don't you try something new? So I think bringing in the manager is actually going to make a big benefit, support to this whole learning journey. And if you're able to do that, and technology can help them do it, it'll go fantastic. That's how I look at it.
As you're saying, incentivizing and gaming, you can only brainstorm so much, right? Yeah. So how does Coursera help with that?
So I think again, I'll pick 3 themes. One is what can one do as a learner on the platform by the use of AI or Gen AI techniques or tools available. What can the manager do, right? Essentially, or manager or the administrator or the leader in the HR and the L&D teams do through a platform like us. And what's the incentive, right? Essentially for the organization and for the learner as well, right? So on the learner side, what we can do and what we are doing on the platform today is, you said, in class and in college we used to get a report, right? But who used to give that report? That used to be our teacher or the professor in the class, right? Now there is nobody here to do that, but can we provide a mentor to the learner on the platform itself who's available 24/7? So we've introduced something called as AI coach, which essentially is a kind of a more credible mentor on the platform. So say if I'm learning negotiation, right? Ramakrishna has a lot of salespeople on the ground, and say, I want to learn negotiation as a skill. You could, go through a video, go through a reading, complete a couple of modules, and then say, okay, now I understand this, but how do I apply in my role, in my context? Now that's where that AI coach kind of, utilizes the platform, algorithm behind and looks at the content which is on Coursera, which is from, say, reputed business schools such as Yale, INSEAD, or IIM Ahmedabad here and, ISB Hyderabad, and will search back the content and give you relevant results for what you've asked, not for what is written on the platform, right? The second, as a leader, in the L&D space and HR space, can you provide data and insights to your managers and to your management, right? Now, that's where a platform like Coursera can and does innovate. We do have a lot of skills dashboards. We do have a lot of, data benchmarking that we can show through the platform, where as a leader in L&D, I can say, look, these set of employees are good in say XY skills at an intermediate level, but I think for their roles they need to move to the Y level, which is the essentially advanced level. And then I can say, look, this is a new thing that we are doing in our company. For this, I think so I'll take an example here. There's an IT service company that we signed up with. They want to be the forefront of Gen AI in the products that we sell. So how can they integrate Gen AI in all the products that they sell? So they've kind of introduced two programs. One is a Gen AI literacy program for all of their employees. And then second is, deep learning on Gen AI tools and techniques for their developers. So essentially, they're addressing a business outcome, but going it through a very hyper-personalization learning for everybody, and then something for the developers. And then the third thing, essentially, that I spoke about was, how can you make this, really, really rigorous as well, right? So, it has to, showcase that, there's something in it for the company as well and for the learner. So we do have a lot of assessments, but we do also have something called as an AI course builder, where like, Ramakrishna said, a manager could quickly build a set of 5 questions, 10 questions based on what they've learned and administer that quiz right away. Maybe add in his video of what he wants them to kind of, think about when they are answering those questions as well. So make it very, very credible and make it very, very custom to what their organization is trying to do.
So you do have tools for managers as well. Problem solved right here. Perfect. Now, how can generative AI technologies facilitate the creation and delivery of personalization and dynamic learning content such as simulations, VR, or gamified learning modules? And what impact do you think this has on the employee?
I think it's helped, definitely helped. I think with generative AI, the time it used to take for, say, creating a simulation in the past used to be anywhere between a month to 3 months at the least, and if you had like most of it content etc. ready. Today people are creating that in 30 minutes, right? You're able to come up with a gamified at least the code for creating a gamified learning module. Yeah. So something like that in just like that, and in another 15-20 minutes you are able to build that. I think the speed of delivery has changed. With that comes the expectations as well. So from a learner point of view, they're now very averse to the standard state content that is coming their way. So it puts a lot of pressure on us. While generative AI has helped in all of these areas, it's a lot of pressure on the organization to create their content in such a way that it is useful and it is consumable the way people are consuming, say, Instagram. One of the things that we've tried looking at is, can we create small reels of stuff? I mean, when we tried to introduce some information in terms of a change in policy, we created it through a small reel and said, okay, this is how it is going to come to you. So when we look at some of these emerging technologies that are helping us in terms of the simulation, in terms of gamified learning, etc. So there's that huge requirement within the organization that all the content comes out that way. So for example, when we were trying to roll out a policy, we said, can we do it through a reel rather than doing it And then what we saw is that people responded back with memes when we sent out a reel.
So even HR has to do reels now.
Yeah, and then you know, kind of look at all the memes that were coming back saying that, okay, we like it, we don't like it, we don't like this part of it. So the interactiveness of the organization has gone up because of these technologies, and therefore when you're looking at each of these elements, like you asked, each of these elements have greatly benefited out of generative AI. The consumption patterns have changed. Initially, we used to send out something, and then people would consume, maybe consume, not consume over a period of time or not. Now I'm able to quickly come up with how many people are consuming it, and we see that there is an uptick. But we also need to ensure that, I mean, while we don't have it at present, but we are also working on ensuring that what is the measurement of outcomes? Is that which is linked to, you know, the whatever we have sent in terms of learning, training, etc. Is there something that people are consuming and because of which they're improving? So that's something that is in the thought process of us right now. But and I think generative AI will help us there as well if we were to look at it.
In fact, become more than an addition, it's become indispensable right now.
I think I can say a couple of examples of again how Gen AI is leveraged on the platform today. So regarding AR VR, right? So we have about 5,000 courses from university faculties and industry partners. What we've started doing as a pilot is we have 3 courses in virtual reality. One of them is on introduction to public speaking, right? Communication, presentation skills are often established as something that people know how to do, but essentially it's very difficult to teach and very difficult to evaluate someone as well, right? So if I had to speak today, I had to probably rehearse it with my wife or with my colleague before I came here, but you can't do it all the time. So through the VR course that we have on public speaking, you could actually customize the audience to say a panel discussion right here or to a conference room of 10 people or to a kind of an auditorium of about 100 people, and then you can give your presentation. It will give you feedback on things like language, intonation, your facial expressions, your hand movements, all of those things, right? Which essentially is very, very personalized and very, very down to the last detail, right? So that I can keep on improving as and when I do these exercises again and again. So that's one way. The other way that Gen AI or technology essentially can be leveraged is can an organization such as Home First Finance do the learning on the Coursera platform, but then give out certificates with badges, which are essentially Home First badges. Say for someone who's in the sales force, you have to do courses on negotiation, business etiquettes, communication, and say one other skill that you add, and you could create a custom kind of course collection and a custom badge. So that's a motivation for a learner that I am a certified Home First learner on the Coursera platform, which he could kind of put in his resume or LinkedIn profile, so that he feels proud about the learning that has happened in the platform today. So several kind of ways in which we can leverage technology.
Avenues and opportunities are immense, especially the public speaking one. I have a question. Of course, if they're going to appreciate you, they're going to clap, the audience. Will they boo also if you're bad?
So there's an interesting kind of input that you can give. You can actually customize the audience to what you want them to be. So you can tell them that to the VR platform that I want an audience who's engaged. So then how does it look? And then you can say an audience which is disengaged. So am I able to kind of engage them or re-engage them in a conversation? So that level of detailing happens. We've opened up the AR VR tools to all our faculty. So you will shortly see a lot of other courses where AR VR is relevant, coming in onto the Coursera platform.
This is very interesting indeed, and because it is so interactive, do you find people who would normally not gravitate towards these courses because they are presented in such an engaging and fun manner, even they would be taking it up, you feel?
Highly likely, right? Someone who's possibly doesn't want to share how he's kind of in terms of speaking or communication skills can do this one-on-one with himself, right? Doesn't need to talk to 5 other people. So possibly there will be an interest. The other is that it's more interactive, that it's more fun. Maybe is an added incentive as well.
It does. I think when you look at the way people have taken to most of the social media and other tools that have come up and ChatGPT as well, it is because it is allowing them that level of personalization, right? It is allowing them to be seen as different and appreciate that difference. Most organizations always looked at people by designation, by role, by geography. You said, okay, you are salespeople from Surat geography, you will be like this. That was the, and therefore you got this training program. That thing has changed. I think, and people now appreciate that.
Absolutely. Now, being an HR leader, what is the kind of impact or tangible impact that you have seen Gen AI having on employee engagement, be it motivation, retention, especially within a learning context? And how can organizations measure and optimize these factors?
I'll answer the second question first. I think measuring learning has been a constantly evolving game. I don't think we've yet reached a stage where you could attribute performance improvement directly to learning. Some cases, yes, it depends on role to role, organization to organization, context to context. In an organization like ours, it might be a little difficult. But what we definitely can measure is the level of engagement that has improved. The level of confidence with which people are now interacting with each other, with the clients, with the customers, with our own teams when we do reviews, etc. So if you are learned, if you have understood the topic, you're able to better present. For example, data. For us, I mean, everybody says data is the new oil, etc. I think it can't be any further from truth for us, because if you have the data in front of you and if you're able to analyze it, understand it, and are able to take actions based on that, you're definitely going to be much better in terms of the outcomes and final outcomes that you'll see. So for example, if you have a set of people who are not giving you the money back in terms of on a monthly basis, the EMIs are not coming to you on a regular basis, you know that there is, and if you are able to put together the data around it and say, okay, what does that require? That requires that you call them, say 4th is the date of EMI. If you call them on a 1st or a 2nd, they will ensure that the money is in the bank. So if you're able to, I mean, this is a very small example, but if you have that data and if you're able to read that data and then you're able to find out the right action that you need to take, all of it is going to become seamless and the performance will start showing. And how do you do that? You have to make sure that they learn about it, right? How do you read data? How do you collate your data? How do you keep it at one place? How do you ensure that you're able to read it properly? How do you make inferences from data? How do you tell a story from data? All of these are learning courses. So if you're able to bring that, the engagement will improve, the outcomes will improve, and you'll have much happier employees.
That's thank you for your perspective. And Pushkar, what do you feel about the impact that learning, especially coupled with generative AI, has had on employee attrition, engagement? What does your data show you?
I think, and like, Ramakrishna said, it is hard to put context around, how much ROI can learning achieve. But, like you said, it's different for different organizations. I can cite 2 or 3 examples where, organizations and L&D leaders try to show impact. So one of them is, we have again a finance company, a home finance company who works with us, and there it's an org-wide program, and we had a sales professional, and the training has happened in only the last 6 months. The sales professional wanted to move into a data role, right? And that's a transition of a career, right? So they learned on Coursera, and within 3 months' time, he or she transitioned into a data analyst role from a sales role. So that's one kind of impact, right? I mean, which is fairly easy to measure and fairly easy to show to other employees as well, right? That learning just doesn't mean that, you're only, kind of learning what you do. You can actually learn what you really want to do in the future as well. The other example that, I can quote about is, it's a published case study from PwC. Now, PwC wants to, digitally transform how they do business with their customers. What kind of insights do they want to bring? What kind of data do they want to show? And for that, for them to be able to do that, their employees need to embrace data. Their employees need to embrace digital technologies. So they are running a program for about 13,000 employees, and they've set up something called as a digital innovation lab, where, different functional teams and their, kind of people within those teams are creating assets which improve productivity, which improved efficiency, which also improved the kind of data and insights that they give to their consulting teams, right? So to date, I think the program is run for about a year. They've produced about 650 assets. Now that's impact, right, for the organization, and then for the learner, who's the employee, that I'm part of this big change. And that's where the engagement comes in. For me as an employee, look, I was a part of this and I contributed to this change. So that's again another measurable impact. The third, and which is slightly more business centric, is that this IT services company said, I want to become $1 billion company in the next 3 to 4 years. To do this, I need to train my employees on these emerging technology skills. For them, people are their currency, right? That's what they sell to the clients that they work with. So they are working towards upskilling their employee force on these emerging technologies, which come from essentially universities who have specializations on, say, IoT, data science, cyber security, you name it, digital marketing and so on and so forth, right? So that's how that company is trying to embrace this, Gen AI or technology to kind of improve their business outcomes in purely terms of revenue.
Okay, so those are some genuine results there and very engaging examples, I have to say. Now, the advent of such technologies which are enhancing the learning experience of the employees and building customized role-based learning pathways, what are some of the business metrics that you're tracking to define the success of a learning program per se?
Yeah, I think, in an organization which hires a lot of freshers straight out of college, for us, time to productivity is the biggest measure. How soon are you really delivering in the role that you've been hired for? So if we are able to reduce that time to productivity, I think the success is in the training program. Nothing else will beat time to productivity than any, from a list of measures that you can look at. If you're ready, it also helps you be retained in the role. Yes. Because if you're doing well, you tend to stay. If you're not doing well, you tend to kind of leave. So time to productivity was the key for us. So when we looked at the training programs that we were running in the further set of people who were joining the organization and seeing what is the time to productivity for them, and now with a more refined learning path, which is offline, online, a mix of trainer-led, a mix of self-learning, and a mix of activities which they need to do, assignments, projects, etc., and some case study based learning. All of that put together, if you were to make a pathway that takes them from zero, which is where they will start when they join the organization, to the peak productivity, 100% productivity, that time has drastically reduced when we had a clearer pathway which is aided by tech, helped, and a lot of interest and intent shown by the managers. I think they played a very, very important role in building that.
Great to see technology impacting lives in such positive ways and for employees to grow in such a short period of time, indeed.
And I'll just add on to what Ramakrishna said. I think measurement of learning has moved from the number of hours or the number of courses that you've done to essentially what are the skills that you have acquired, right? Because primarily, if we take a backseat and think about how hiring happens today, the hiring is moving towards a skills-first hiring. Gone are the days where you had a BTech or a BBA or a BCom, and then that's how you got hired, right? Yeah. You are now being asked questions about what kind of skills do you carry, what kind of skills can you develop, right? So the impact from a learning perspective is what are the skills that someone has and what are the skills that someone acquired over a period of time that would eventually improve productivity, eventually improve efficiency and the business outcomes as well. So I would say that's one of the key context around measurement of learning. But otherwise, I think we alluded to a couple of kind of examples earlier where how did business impact, how does so the other on the role based skilling. We do have skill sets on our platform where if you are a data analyst today and you want to become a data scientist, right? So what are the skills for a data analyst? What are the skills for a data scientist? And what's the gap that one needs to kind of move from data analyst to data scientist? That's the kind of knowledge that we have on the platform, and we can help a learner and an organization do that. So again, very different ways of measuring success, but it is what it is.
It is very enlightening to listen to the two of you. I've had so much information imparted to me today. And I have to tell you, you've made upskilling sound like an absolute joyride. It sounds like a lot of fun, the work that the two of you are doing. It's great to listen to it. Thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for watching. For more such interesting and engaging conversations, stay tuned to the Economic Times.